Morning and welcome to another Thursday's Thought for the Day. It's certainly not as sunny as it was last week. Oh, there is a bit of blue sky up there. We hope the sun comes back soon. This morning I'm going to read from Luke's Gospel, chapter 16, verses 19 to 31. And this is a continuation of Jesus' teaching using parables on wealth, a continuation from yesterday's reading. So here goes the passage. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. And he called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us is a great chasm which has been fixed, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can come across there to us." He said, "Then, Father, I beg you to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them, so that they will not also come into this place of torment." And Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets, they should listen to them." He said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent." And he said to them, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they listen or be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." So it's thought that Jesus is retelling a very familiar folk story that all his listeners would have been familiar with. And in the original story, he has a wicked rich man and a pious poor man, and their fortunes were reversed in the afterlife. But the point of this parable is not to tell us about reward and punishment. It's to challenge us about our character, about what our motives are, what drives us in life, what we value, how we treat other people, how we think about others. So Jesus starts his parable. There was a rich man clothed in purple and fine linen. And immediately he's drawing in the Pharisees and the high priests. The Pharisees would have been rich. The high priests would have worn these purple fine linen clothing. And so Jesus is immediately framing them as the rich man. And then we have Lazarus, who's been described as a starving beggar. He's covered in sores, he's going to be in constant pain, probably has nowhere to live. He's desperate and begging at the gate of a rich man. And then Jesus immediately flips the story to the afterlife, and we see that Lazarus has been fast-tracked to heaven, and he's living in comfort, whereas the rich man goes to, this translation describes Hades, another translation hell. It's not a great place to be. But interestingly, the questions for the rich man in this passage are not concerning the things that he's done wrong. So he hasn't ordered that Lazarus leaves the gates to his house. He hasn't prevented him from eating the bread that he chucks from his table, and he hasn't spat at him as he's walked past him at the gate. What Jesus is concerned about in this parable is what the rich man hasn't done. He hasn't noticed Lazarus. He hasn't respected him as a fellow human being, looked out for him. He hasn't shown any care or compassion for the reasons he might be in that place. He hasn't chosen to use his blessings and his wealth wisely to look out for less fortunate people. Now, the other thing I noticed about this passage, this sense of thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So Jesus seems to be putting into practice in the present world, in the here and now, what we'll see in the future heavenly world. And I think when Jesus gives us a little glimpse into this future world, we need to heed what he says, on earth as it is in heaven. So in a context of this parable, Jesus would have really deeply challenged those who were listening to him, deeply challenged. And I just pray that we all read back through this parable and ask Jesus how he is speaking to us today. How does Jesus want to challenge each one of us? And I can tell you it's certainly challenged me this week as I've been reflecting and thinking upon this passage, this parable that Jesus shares and uses as teaching. So have a great day, and I do hope that the sun shines a bit more in the days to come.